This video takes you through adding actions into a case flow in Builder. Once I've added my case level information, I can move on to build my flow by adding actions from a standard list of agreed action types. Now you don't have to use all of the action types in the list, and you don't have to put them in a given order. They allow for variability at a local level, but the overall list itself is maintained and agreed at a global level to allow for standardization. So let's just add in a couple more actions here. You can see them appearing on the grid below as I add them. If I wanted to, I could add some in parallel, so let's just do that as well. There we go, and I can also move them up and down if I wanted to. So let's have a look through the grid at the lower part of the screen and see the information we can define for each of the action types. Let's just choose one here. So first of all, I've got the step number, and this is just the step in which the action appears. I've then got the name of the action. The next column along is checklists, something that we will look at in a later video. After that, I've got reminder email settings. So let's click on that. So for each action, I could decide to send a reminder email automatically before the due date of the action and one after the due date of the action has passed. Let's save that. Next along, we've got 3 items which are governed by just selecting from a drop-down list. When is it due? Who does it go to? And some general settings. So if I click here, I've got a list predefined and again globally agreed of standard, what's sometimes called flavors of how something should work. So let's just choose a due date setting here of 2 days from the start. Who does it go to? Send it to the approval team, and general settings, we'll just choose some general settings here and we'll come back and look at that in a second. Now what having an approach of a standard agreed list allows us to do is it just allows us to standardize and not have thousands of variants of subtly different things. If we want to look at the details underpinning that, so I've got here a flavor which says 2 working days from the start, but you'll see that there's a little bit more detail than that underneath it, but you don't really need to know about that level of detail on a day-to-day basis. You just choose your option. In a separate video, we'll go and look at the specifics underneath each flavor of due date and allocation rule and the general settings. Similar state of affairs for who does it go to. We've got some additional information here underneath the allocation rule and the general settings. What's that for? That's where you would store some instructions or some standard operating procedures if you needed them. You can also specify estimated duration time to carry out that task or carry out that action for a human, for robots, and indeed which robot farm could do it, and what are the underlying skill sets required in order to carry out that action, which is useful information for determining whether something could be roboticized later on. Next column along here is whether something should be allowed to be started manually. So if I tick that, that says that in addition to being part of the flow, I could also choose to start this manual action at any given time. Now going along with that is a button here for add ad hoc actions. And what's that for? So if I've got an existing action that's already in the flow and I want to be able to say that I can start it manually, I just tick the box. But I might have actions which just don't form part of the flow. Their only job is to be there available to start at any time. I click on ad hoc action here and I'm going to add this in here this way. It appears on the grid. It doesn't have a step number because that's not relevant. I could make the same settings for it. I've also got an icon here, a trash can icon, because that's the only easy way I can delete this action here because it doesn't appear on the flow for me to delete it there. And the other thing you can note about this is I've added in the ad hoc action. It's automatically ticked the manually startable, and that's read-only because that's its only main function. Next columns along here are the main screen and side panel smart cards. So I don't have to, but I could, for a given action, decide I'm going to have a smart card defined for it that allows me to update bespoke or custom data. So now that we've got a number of actions here in our grid, we could choose to, let's flip the view across to just view the actions, which is often very useful when we want to move on to making the configuration changes. I can copy and paste using Control C and Control V there for the various flavors. Let's just do that quickly to speed things along. And once I'm happy that I think I've got all my information that I need, I can hit save. The system will save and do some validation. I've got some information that's missing, so I've got an exclamation mark here. Let's click on that. This tells me I've got a send email action and I've got to set some email to information. So I'm flipping across to the next tab. We will go and look at the email information tab and the peer review tab, which sometimes appear here. So for example, I need to be able to set a subject here and I need to set a response email from. So let's add one in there. That's automatically set as the default. Try my save again. System will check for validation and tell me whether I've got all my information saved. Still got some information missing. Send email to or email CC for this action. Okay, so I need to specify an email to. I could specify an individual email address or I can choose one of the relationship types. Let's just say it's going to go to primary contact. I'm happy with that. One more save, validated draft. Now I can set it live and I can use my case.